I did the Air Force. I didn't really like being in the military, but you learn to take a lot of crap from people. If it's not relevant, you learn how to let go of that. Work will never end unless you quit or die. I always had a pretty high opinion of myself, so I thought, yeah, I can bring some business savvy into this. With some things, you need to do the same things over and over again and put in the hard work. So it took a long time for me to learn to work hard. Just potential is not enough if it's not fulfilled, and the way to fulfill it is to...
Welcome to Sports and Outdoor Mentors. In this episode, I chat to David Ekelund, the co-founder and CEO of Icebug. Icebug is a footwear brand that's renowned for minimizing their negative environmental impact. They employ 50 people and in 2022 generated approximately 30 million euros of sales. I chat with David about the challenges of founding and leading a family-run business, around his inspirational approach to people leadership, and how they're leading the way in transforming the outdoor industry to be more sustainable. Before we jump into the episode, I have one favour to ask. Please hit the subscribe button. This helps the channel massively by enabling us to continue to elevate the content and attract more guests to share their amazing insights with you. So let's get into the episode. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you soon. David, looking back over your life to date, what are the defining factors, the defining moments that led to where you are today?
I mean, obviously, being born into a pretty wealthy part of the world where outdoor activities or nature has always been close by. I think that's an important part, and having a lot of possibilities through free education, both high quality school and through university. And then, serendipity, starting some stuff with my mother that I never thought I would do. And then there's also been some bigger events that led to inner development. I think that first hearing about Earth Overshoot Day was one such time. And then when there was when the effect of the climate crisis was felt here for the first time, when we had a summer without any rains and lots of forest fires. And then I think the pandemic was also a very life-changing event or series of events or situation for me.
As obviously you're aware, I mean, most people that work in the outdoor industry have a fundamental passion to be outdoors. And I know for you, let's say your main passion or biggest passion, maybe is a better way to describe it, I think is skiing. But I know you also run and mountain bike, kayak, practice yoga. But before you kind of got into all those sports, I think as a kid, you used to play in forests like the ones that we surround us today. So would you say that was somehow the catalyst for you at a very early age of loving to be outdoors and loving the outside?
Yeah, I think there are two different things here. One is things that you kind of do as activities. So I also started skiing at a very early age. I think I was 4 the first time I was in the Alps. But the other part, which is more as an integrated part in everyday life, more or less, because I grew up in a pretty urban area, but still very close to the forest. We always spent a lot of time there, and that wasn't really outdoor activity. That was just being outside. So I think that I didn't quite understand how much that influenced me and was a part of who I am. It kind of this everyday being outdoors thing until it was this time when the forest here felt that it was really not in very good shape, when it was a big drought. And then I realized, in fact, I grew up just about 10K hike through the forest. So it's basically the same forest. I've lived, in a few different places outside as well, but I came back to basically the same forest, and I hadn't really realized that. Because if you drive around, it's a little bit longer, but if you hike through it, it's only 10K. And the idea of this, the forest that I always took for granted, that it would maybe not be around for me and for my kids and for future generations, that was a very tough thing to take in.
So after those early years when you studied, I think you studied philosophy initially in Gothenburg, so not too far away. And then you switched to journalism. Maybe you can touch a little bit on why you switched. I think there's maybe an interesting anecdote, funny story there. But also you studied in Spain for a little while as well. So I'm interested, first of all, is there anything through those years, through those studies that you were able to kind of take and practically use and in later life in running Icebug today? And also what the value for you of spending time in Spain was, and if you felt that was a value to you.
Starting with philosophy, I think that was the first subject I studied at university. And I think it's excellent in the sense that this gives you a lot of tool for thinking and to analyze what is a real problem and what is kind of a pseudo problem. So I think that was the best aspect that I got from philosophy at that time. Maybe I got some seeds that would grow later in terms of philosophy as a way of approaching how to live a good life. At that time, I was mostly interested in the analytical part. But after a while, I kind of get a little bit fed up with, asking, does the world exist or not? And decided to, I want to be a little bit more practical in, I think the world exists, so I want to be a little bit more practical in how I can affect this world. And then I did military service, and after that, I went to journalism, as I saw as a way of trying to have some influence on positive development in the world.
Interesting. No, I wasn't aware you did military service. So, what did you take away from that experience? Anything, or?
Yeah, it was mandatory at that time. Of course, you could do without weapons, some kind of civil service. But I think I had a fundamental belief that Sweden should have a defense, and if I think that's the right thing to do, then I need to do my part, which is a little bit similar to like the sustainable transformation. If I think that something is right for the world, I have to take that in and work that way inside the company as well. But yeah, I didn't really like, I did the Air Force. I didn't really like being in the military. But you learn to, take a lot of crap from people. Yeah. And just, if it's not relevant, you learn how to let go of that. Okay. So that was a good learning. Absolutely. I don't know if it was worth 11 months of my life, though. But still, it's a good learning that you can use in future life as well.
Interesting. And then, as you said, you moved into journalism, and then I think you did various different freelance work as a journalist for I think 4 to 5 years, if I know.
Yeah, I think it became a little bit shorter, and I did so the way that the job market for journalists looked back then was that you go into being substitute in a newspaper or in another media outlet, because there were number of journalism jobs was declining. And the union was still strong, so you could do as a temporary for 11 months. But if you do more than that, then they had to offer you a fixed position next time they had an open position. And they never wanted to do that. So basically how the job market worked was that people moved from place to place, doing 11 months in one place and then 11 months in another place. So at the end of my first, let's say this 11 months stint, when I was going to be kicked out from the newspaper where I worked, I had the option to go to the other, which was more a daily newspaper in the same city, or go to Stockholm, which is a main area for journalism. And I worked in something like the Yellow Press. Okay. which is fun work. It's a good craft, but it also really pushes all, or at least for me, it pushed all my cynical buttons.
Okay.
Really? So yeah, because real good stuff from selling, newspaper copies point of view is when it happens really bad stuff. So I was like, should I go to Stockholm and do the same thing? I don't know. And when it comes to journalism, it's one of those professions where you have a few really high-profile jobs, which are the reason why you want to go into journalism. But then you realize that really the majority of journalists, they have a different job than those most profiled or prominent ones. So it was around this time that my mother, who was very established sportswear and then footwear designer, her best supplier from Taiwan, they asked her if she didn't want to start a company with them to cater for the Scandinavian market, doing design and product development and production for different Scandinavian brands and in-house labels. And she kind of described this as an opportunity, but she was unsure if she, would be able to do it alone. And then I figured, okay, so I always had a pretty high opinion of myself. So I thought, yeah, I can bring some business savvy into this, because she always been very good at commercial design and made a lot of other people rich. So I thought, yeah, I'll bring some savvy into this, and we'll do a few years. And I formed a company then called MDP, as in $1 Million Project.
Wow!
so the plan was to go in, work together for a few years, make $1 million, and then I could, resign, retire, and write novels, and I wouldn't have to care if anybody would buy them or read them.
24 years later, here we are.
Yeah, exactly. So first, in that kind of respect, first we did really well with finding a lot of good customers here. But then things changed pretty fast. So first, Chinese shoe factories became a lot better at going direct. And the customers, they were only looking for the lowest price. So the space to work with quality or design, it was shrinking pretty fast. So we thought, okay, long term, this is not going to be viable. If we going to do something that we can stand for, we need to start our own brand. And then we saw that our expertise was in winter footwear. That's where we could add something of value. And then this was a big happy coincidence. One of our Taiwanese partners found this traction technology, which a Canadian triathlete had developed and which was tested in the US runners world. So he had a very, very rudimentary shoe, but the technology that he had developed in his own rubber factory with dynamic carbide tip studs, making it possible for him to run and train all through Montreal winter. We saw that, okay, this is not only for running, but with this we actually have a chance to solve what is the biggest problem that footwear can solve in the wintertime, the risk of slipping. Yeah. So that's how we started to build Icebug around this traction technology.
Going back to those early days, I would imagine there are, let's say, the good and the bad of working with somebody in your family. So in your case, your mum. So when you reflect on those early days of Icebug, what are the best and the worst memories of those times?
The best was that we had a lot of fun, and it's. Since this was never really, or it didn't start as a serious project in that way, you can kind of role play a little bit with having a company and being a business person. and then traveling a lot, and there's this positive momentum around creating something new together. So that was very much on the positive side. And, the tough side was that very few people believed in us. So from the industry, they thought that this would be a very marginal product. And I think what got us going early was that as soon as we had products out, we had customer feedback, user feedback saying, things along the lines of, thanks for making this fantastic product. Now I dare to go outside in the wintertime again when it's slippery. And it's this very strong sensation that when you expect to slip, but you get traction. And we see that's like it's a key driver of recommendation for Icebug, which still is reproduced over and over and over again. And still, it's a little bit the same feeling every year when it's slippery for the first time and you use the shoes and you remember what it feels like. It's pretty amazing this way. So this was what was a very positive thing. And then it's very interesting building a company because I'm super interested in culture. And I think culture is here we say that we have three main things that you will be not really measured by, but the three things that are equally important if you work at Icebug. One is getting the job done. The second is developing, and the third is contributing to culture. And my work with culture has often also been in opposition to what I don't like. So when I worked as a journalist, this was really a culture of complaining about everybody else, how stupid. Because I worked in the night time editing the magazine, so then we complained about how stupid the people working in the daytime were, or the graphics, how stupid they were, or the photographers. Or even the journalists writing, because we were editors, and of course everybody complained about how stupid the management was.
Of course.
But it's really as you're never gonna be able to complain and whine yourself towards a better atmosphere. But that doesn't stop people from trying, for sure. So that's one thing that I really didn't want to have. And then we figured that the project was okay, if you surround yourself, you're going to be so much time at work. So it's more nice to surround yourself with friends and people you like. So that's what we did. And that's very good in this care aspect. But what we noticed then, if you do this for a longer time, is that if you don't have high enough expectations, also, then it's not a nice culture after a while.
High enough expectations in what way?
To get the job done. Okay. So not just caring about each other, but actually also having the candor to say, okay, now you need to get this done here, and so that you contribute something of value together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that balance is key for sure.
Yeah.
Not always easy to find the right balance though. I think, being nice, being a good person, of course, is important. But I also think, for individuals' motivation, for their own drive, that accountability, that need to, be held accountable for something, I think is really important.
I don't really like accountability, because that kind of starts where responsibility ends. So I'm much more like, if people really move into taking responsibility. Yes. But where that fails, accountability needs to be a place. But if we have expectations that people will take responsibility for driving certain things and so that we can create value together, that's a strong part.
Yeah, Absolutely.
That's what we're still trying to always find the right way in moving in this direction.
Yeah. But I think it's an ongoing challenge. I'm not sure you'll ever find the perfect balance.
Work will never end unless you quit or die. So,
exactly.
And culture is definitely something we recreate every day together. I mean, me and the rest of the people that work here.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
It's fragile, but it can when it's good. It's really that brings amazing. It makes a great place to work.
So I wanted to go back briefly on something that you mentioned earlier on. You said that you had this opinion of yourself in the early days that you had this business savvy, so you were going to come in and help your mum create this $1 million business. So now, coming from journalism, there's not necessarily a strong connection to running a business. So where did that confidence, where did that belief come from a business perspective?
I always had a pretty high belief in my own potential to do different things. I think that's the way I've seen myself, that I have potential to do big things.
Yes.
And it's not because it took a long time for me to learn, because the school was always very easy for me, and doing exams, on general exams, the kind of which gives you makes possible to enter university. I scored very high on those as well. So I always had, but the problem is if you look too much towards seeing yourself as high potential, and you're kind of very fond of that self-view as well. And you don't understand that you have to, stretch out so far, so some things you will fail with. And also that you need to put in single-mindedness and perseverance. And with some things, you need to do the same things over and over again and put in the hard work. Just potential is not enough if it's not fulfilled, and the way to fulfill it is to finding the proper purpose and mission, and have a direction, and then work hard. So it took a long time for me to learn to work hard and to stick to certain things and repeating those. Because it takes a while until you know what you're doing, and then you get tired of it, and then you want to change to something else. But other people will not necessarily catch up until you have done that thing a couple of times.
And is that something, that point around, I guess, your speed or anybody's ability to move quicker than other people, is that something as a leader of the business that you have to be sensitive to, that perhaps you're already thinking about the tomorrow's challenge and people within the business are still focused on today's challenge? Is that something that you're conscious of?
This is really interesting, because what we have as like the main, try to boil down as the main thing which we are working at is trying to making us future fit now, or actually making sure that we are relevant for tomorrow now. So we kind of work with here and now at the same time as the long-term perspective. Yeah. But it's always a question, and I don't think that's just me, but you can move very fast in the thinking and concept domain. There's virtually no friction there. Sure. But then you have to be very, very mindful that whenever you want to take concept or an idea and try to make it into reality in an organization or in society or in the market, then often there is a lot of friction. Not people working against it necessarily, but just it's slow to get some movement, and not to get frustrated by that, but sticking to this. And also in some cases, like, so we first had this organization I talked about where we were all happy friends. Liking each other was the most important. We had 45-minute coffee break in the morning, 1.5 hour lunch, then 45 minutes coffee break, something like that. I'm I exaggerate a little bit, but the social part of it was very important. And then we grew to a certain level, and then we needed more, structure and order. And you can't really share. Of course, being at the coffee table has a value because you share everything which happens. You get context. But then when you reach a certain size, you have the possibility, and you need to kind of move to not everybody doing everything, but people having more clear that they can do different things and they're good at that thing. So we moved into much more structured system with departments and job descriptions and setting targets and then breaking down targets and doing target focus boards for each quarter and like some kind of bingo thing at the monthly meetings. And then we saw that this wasn't really serving us well, because we ended up in real silos where if some people would cooperate, then it would be like the head of the department talking with the other head of the department, and do we have resources and so on. And also a lot of, this is not marketing's job, this is sales job. And then pushing back, no, this is not sales job, this is marketing's job. So then we wanted to have a system which was much, much more based on, what's the actual work we want to do and how do we create value and how do we collaborate in teams around that. So we wanted to switch towards a more agile, or we started with Scrum, pretty strict Scrum methodology to try to do this. And then we moved into more agile, as you don't want to do Scrum as doing Scrum. Then that also becomes very orthodox, but we wanted to have a more agile approach to working and much more team-based and more focused around, so how do we collaborate to create value? And then when we did this big shift, that's like a case when it was so frustrating in the start because nothing was happening. In that case, the best thing you could do, because people don't know if it's for real, and they're not used to the situation. So can I really move in and have the possibility to decide things here? You give the power to decide a lot of things, but not a lot of things happen. Still asking for decisions. So that's very frustrating. But what we managed to do then, which was very important, was keeping this space open so that people actually, you try to move in a little bit and you realize that, it's working. I can move in and I can take a bigger role and drive certain things in a much more clear way than having to ask my boss about something. So keeping space open, waiting for things that you want to happen. It's a real test of patience. Whereas we have this idea, we're going to work this way. It's all in our heads is ready, but having it happen in real life is a slow process, which you have to allow to be slow.
Interesting. And that's something that you're still that's the way you very much work today?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And also in a way of thinking about innovation. And we don't have a big number of targets and we don't do these breakdowns anymore. But the most important thing is that we have a clear sense of direction and alignment between the teams. And then we try to have this model where we maybe don't plan very big projects to make big steps, but to a lot of continuous innovations or improvements, quick wins that leads us in this strategic direction. So that if you see kind of a timeline, each one is small, but if you see from two different times, then you see a real qualitative level of difference. So that's how we try to approach innovation and plan work, to try to do it as small as possible, but something which happens continuously.
that, as if I understand well, that then must also support the having a more sustainable approach to what you're doing, because you're not saying, okay, this is what we have today, but this is what we have tomorrow, and it's completely different. So so you're not devaluing what you have today tomorrow. It's really something that evolves over time, but is still very relevant. Still.
Yes, and it's part of the learning process. So even if some things we did 2 years ago we wouldn't do them today, they still had value for us. Like an example of this is really how we have worked with sustainability or climate work over the past couple of years. So we started pretty much, of course, we started doing proper sustainability works longer ago, after we had the opportunity with the right size to be able to ask our partners to do anything else than the standard, and also based on this understanding of the Earth Overshoot Day, that we are accumulating ecological depth. So we have to be very resource efficient, or trying to solve relevant human needs with as low resource use as possible. It's a fundament of how we think sustainability needs to be approached. But after this summer of 2018, when there was no rain, we felt that we got to be able to accelerate the climate work. So then we decided that by 2020 we would be climate positive, and did this as a public statement, and to be sure to kind of tie ourselves to the mast. We put it on the shoe boxes coming out as well. And when we decided, we didn't really know what it would mean, because we didn't have a clear measuring of our emissions. And we didn't know what we knew that we wouldn't be able to remove all of it, of course. But we didn't know what compensation would cost. But that kind of sent the organization into not only a few people that are normally the ones interested with sustainability, but the wider scope of the organization got very nervous, proud and nervous. So they got to work, and we did a good first LCA of a relevant product, which was also one of the biggest sellers. So we can assess what's the total impact. And then we also found this, in the UN platform for offsetting or compensation, where it was much, much lower cost than we had expected. Okay. We thought when we started, we thought, okay, this will be between 5 and 20 euros per pair of shoes.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's a big gap.
Yes.
But it ended up being more like 20 cents or something like that. So that cost is really nominal. And when we did the full compensation in the UN offsetting platform, they said, okay, it seems that you are the first company in your business that are doing this. We wanna acknowledge this. So this Climate Neutral Now published that we were the first climate positive outdoor footwear brand. Yes. And then that felt like a good narrative, but then the whole climate positive and climate neutral has the problem that people might think that, okay, it's fine, it's compensated. Now I can carry on with business as usual. Yeah. So we left that narrative. That's one thing we wouldn't do again. But what we learned in the process, we had this, for one boot that we did 14 kilos of CO2 equivalents. Yeah. And then, of course, we were wondering, is this good or is this bad? And we saw that there is really no available benchmarking data. So then we launched into the next thing, which was making this available for all of the line, meaning that we do a light LCA for all products, and then we publish CO2 footprint, percentage bio-based material, percentage recycled material, as well as all the production sites that has been involved in the production, tier 1, tier 2, tier 4. So you can follow this. And that's accessible with a QR code on the product to increase transparency and make it easy to understand. And what we learned then was that a lot of for some we have primary data, but a lot of this is secondary data, which means that it's averages taken from the Material Sustainability Index database. And that's not very high quality data. So a lot of the material stuff, we know that some things are better than other things, but the actual footprint is pretty vague. But what we could see was that sure emission reductions comes when we use less fossil-based energy. So when we could switch processes to not using boilers, so we don't use any conventional dyeing, for example, that has a clear effect. And also switching to renewables in the factories. So then we became part of a pilot program, which was about installing or investigating if solar was a case for factories in Vietnam, where we produced. And that program where we could then, because we've always been thinking that it's a good idea, and we know that the grid electricity in Vietnam is 70% fossil-based. So to switch from that is a clear, immediate advantage. But when talking to the factories, this is not their main line of business, and they don't know Vietnamese regulations. They're often Korean or Taiwanese, and are not that into engaging in those things because it's difficult, and they don't know solar, what is required and how much it can deliver and so on. So, but we managed then with pooling funds together to hire really good local solar or energy expertise. And the pilot showed that, yes, the factories could get up to 50% of the electricity from their rooftops. And there were solar vendors that could install and finance this. So if they write a contract where they buy this electricity for 15, 20 years, then they don't need to make any investment. They cut emissions about in half, and they will get a discount for electricity from the roof compared to buying it off the grid, depending where they are in the country, between 20 and 35%. And when we learned that that is possible, then we teamed up with this best solar vendor, because I scanned the whole Vietnamese market and had 20 offers. And we asked them, okay, so why don't we make this into a program? And then we invited other brands and other to nominate their factories to this. Because it's like a basic principle we have. Whenever we see a sustainability win, we think it's our obligation to try to share it so that it can be scaled and not keeping things proprietary.
The recognition you received as the first business outdoor footwear business to be climate neutral.
Yeah, or even climate positive, because we did 200% compensation.
I noticed that recently, in the last few years, you're actually getting a lot of recognition. You've won a lot of awards, a lot of prizes. You recently were awarded an Entrepreneur of the Year award. Is that something as a business that you particularly go after? That kind of recognition? Is there a strategy behind that, or
no?
Okay.
It's an effect of doing good things, yeah.
But that must be a great
and then you have like an obligation to use certain platforms. So we were Entrepreneurs of the Year in this West Sweden part, and this coming weekend is the final in for all of Sweden, which is in the same place as where they have the Nobel Prize ceremony. So it's at least it doesn't have the same weight, but it's the same house. So, but if we would win that, then I think it's a very important platform to talk about. Okay, because this is an association of for businesses that give this out, and they talk about how businesses are very important for creating jobs and paying taxes, which makes it possible to build the commons, and that's very relevant. But I think in this where we are right now and with the problems we face, businesses have an extended responsibility. We can't really pretend about externalities anymore. We have to take in our effect on society and nature and take responsibility for that. Yeah. And I think that the only real future fit businesses are if we set our business targets in a way so that when we reach our business targets and where we are doing well, then the world is also doing well. So our business target that we have set now or kind of refined is about amounts of uses. We think that our contribution to people living better lives or to the world is primarily getting people outdoors more in a together kind of way, because that's satisfied some things which we are really hardwired to benefit from in well-being. Physical activity, being together with others, and also connecting to nature. Yeah. So we think this has a value. Yeah. And then we want to work towards that value. And then number of uses is much more important than number of pairs we sell. Yeah. Number of pairs we sell is one factor in this, but there are two other factors. The second one being that actually the shoes need to find a customer who will become a user. Yeah. That they will use this product so that it doesn't just end up in the cupboard or is, the 40th pair of shoes that you hardly ever use. And then the third aspect is durability, that you actually will be able to use it for a long time. So that combined would make for uses. And if we get more people out and then also do collaborations to scale this, we think the world will benefit from this. Yeah. And then we need to do this in a as resource efficient way and polluting as little as possible. So then for the product, of course, this has to do with number of uses and also durability, and then also the footprint in production. Yeah. But just the footprint in production isn't really that interesting. It's footprint per use for an activity which you benefit from. That would be the real thing that's important to measure. Yeah.
In addition to doing the work with your co-founders to run the business, you also sit on the board of the EOG, and previous to that were chair of the Scandinavian Outdoor Group. When you're obviously dedicating your own time to be part of these programs, what's your drive and motivation for that? And what have you got out of it so far? What do you feel like you're getting out of it?
So I'm a very strong believer in the power of collaboration. And I think that, the Scandinavian Outdoor Group, where I was for the longest so far, it's a testimony to that. There's a lot of really valuable work done on the sustainability side there. And then I also think that, of course, by contributing something to the common good, we also benefit. And there's this kind of trust which has been, I would say, the Scandinavian secret sauce of success has been trust in our societies. And you can also see this in the Scandinavian Outdoor Group, that brands, they don't wait with giving things until they've seen that they have received more. They trust that if I give, I will also get. So I think that building on that is very, very important. And then this might seem a little bit presumptuous, but I think that the Scandinavian aspect of outdoor have something valuable to offer to the world. It's based in this friluftsliv mindset where, you know, outdoor should be available for everybody. It doesn't need to be very extreme, or, you know, it's about getting out. It's free air life if you just translate it. Okay. And people have, of course, here access to nature through the freedom to roam, where we have access to public land. But the thing that you can try to integrate this really into your everyday life as a mindset. And that also ties back to the ecological philosophy. Arne Næss and the Stettin Declaration, and the belief that nature, it's not only for us to use, and the value of nature is not only, you know, whatever we can derive out of it, but it has a value in its own right. I think those parts are part of the Scandinavian outdoor culture and mindset, and I think that those are universally valuable.
These the projects that you're working on, obviously here with building the brand and the strong sustainability backbone of the business, the work that you're doing with the EOG, and of course you have you have a family as well. You have children. So how do you manage to find a good balance with that? And are there any, let's say, non-negotiable aspects to the way you live your life that enable you to find that balance?
I never like to work too much. so in fact, I think this is maybe an important thing to share from like an entrepreneur point of view, because you get all these crazy stories about sleeping under the desk and stuff like that. I don't think I ever regularly worked more than, let's say, 50 hours per week, more in line with 40 hours, because I always wanted a certain balance. And it's possible to build a business that way, apparently. Yeah, of course, you need luck as well, but it's possible. I also want to kind of set up every day so that I get a good balance. So, you know, you don't wait for the weekend or wait for vacation for everything to happen. So an important part of setting this up, I think, is that we do this 3 well health hours per week. So 11 to 12, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We close the office and everybody go out to do some activity that they like. So some people run in the forest, some do more hiking. Mushroom hunting was popular lately. You can go to, there's some outdoor gyms around here. And football, tennis is also quite popular. So some game aspect of it. And that's, you know, for me and for everybody that works here, because fundamentally I think I want to set up this place to work so that it's a place where I want to work. And I want other people that work here as well to have the same kind of working situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, physical activity and taking time for that goes a long way for balance. And then, you know, it's family life also balances you. You have to be there. So I also try to switch the mindset a little bit, so you don't just have a long to-do list, but rather try to focus on using the time I have in the best way, and prioritize. And then what I have time to do, it's what I have time to do. Because, as I said, work will never end. You will never reach the end of where you couldn't do more work.
Yes.
So you have to kind of block the time you want to work and then make best use of that time.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you can scale this to the life as well. Yeah. I believe we have one life. It will end.
Yes.
So this also relates to what I value highest. It's not maximizing the amount of money, but actually using my time in the best way.
It's really, it sounds like it's fundamentally it's a philosophy that you're kind of operating under. It doesn't sound like there's a particular rules that you abide with. It's just a philosophy that, as you said, you know, my time is finite, and you know, it's not even a discussion really. It seems like you will have a balance, and you know, you basically act to ensure that happens. But I think it's tough for a lot of people to understand how you achieve that.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah. It sounds simple.
Yeah, no, but it's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
So it's I think this is, I mean, as culture and building your everyday life, and you know, a lot of things coming in, lots of demands. It's a constant train of steering that way, and remembering what you think is most important, and also trying to do as little as possible. That I'm not the only one that can do, because that would be what brings Icebug most value. But I also use I do practice a lot of yoga that grounds me as well. I do try to spend a little bit of time every day out in the forest. Yeah. That's also helpful. No, meditation, mindfulness approaches to things. There's a lot of different things you can do. So a combination of trying to design the workplace and you know, different systems I work with, so that it's not overwhelming, and trying to navigate and prioritize. It's difficult, but manageable. Okay. I don't have any there's a lot of people are much more much better at the practical management of this than I am. But I managed to do okay for myself. Okay. And I try to steer by, I read a really great book this summer, which is called The Inner Game of Tennis.
Okay.
Which is kind of the best non-Eastern way of kind of approaching a yoga philosophy, I think. The approach to tennis there is very much about finding a state of relaxed concentration. And if you can learn that in tennis, you can try to apply it to everything. And it's a lot about not having this inner voice beating you up the whole time, or even praising you the whole time, but actually focusing on the task at hand and trying to have a mental picture of how to do it, and then finding the right feeling when the flow is going well, when you're performing well. And I apply that also to yoga practice. So I get into a position, I know what it's supposed to feel like. I don't think I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. Yeah. But I get into the position, I know the shape of it, I know what it should feel like. If it doesn't feel this way, then I start making adjustments. Yeah. And I think that I'm trying to apply the same for work. So when I'm really productive, how does that feel? And then I try to get into this shape and use feeling to kind of fast determine if I'm doing well or not. And if not, I adjust. So it's a really important factor for me, the way I feel in the body when I leave work. Yes. And oftentimes I feel stress in the body, and then I know that I should try to modify some things so that I leave work with a good feeling.
It's the inner game of tennis.
Inner Game of Tennis, yes. Okay. Very worthwhile to read. Pretty short, so condensed wisdom.
Perfect. What would you consider to be your most important task as a leader of a business, but also people?
I mean, a little bit high flying. We have decided that we want to use the company not to maximize profit, but to maximize our impact on sustainable transformation. And our vision is to be a change maker for a society where people can thrive on a planet in balance. I think my most important task is to be the change I want to see in the world. So if we talk about that this should be a place to develop, that where people should be able to develop to their full potential, then I need to be able to and be willing to learn and develop, and also provide a space for that. And if I think that the world needs a proper price on carbon, then we should indeed put that same fee on carbon in our internal calculations, which we have. And that's an ongoing thing. The whole making us future fit now, that's my main mission for people that work here, for people that are involved in the supply chain, for customers that we want to be users and then turn into co-creators of more sustainable lifestyles to inspire that. It really amounts up like last year's Oscars winner. This work is everything everywhere all at once in a way. But we also have to try in this to identify what are we uniquely positioned to do, where can we influence most, so that we don't really do everything, but we need to work in a lot of dimensions at the same time and focus on where we can have the most use our platform to leverage things. So one example is we think we can use our platform to leverage things with a bank. So we were part of, and that work we have done for 4 or 5 years. So that, we have this discussion with a bank every time, what do you do so that you don't finance fossil fuels investments or, companies that aren't aligned with 1.5, and also make sure that, the default pension offering and funds that's only placed in deep green, or at least green according to the taxonomy, those kind of funds. And then we could work with a green in cash action guide that we can then spread to other companies, because a lot of companies have a very big part of their cost emissions from their money. And it would be one of the easiest things to work with. But it's easier if you have a clear action guide.
Yeah, for
than
sure.
if everybody have to start from scratch.
Yeah. Okay. You've mentioned a couple of times the importance of developing people. That I've read in the past that, for you, it's about finding that balance between obviously developing the business, but sustainable transformation and the individual personal development. So can you open up a little bit about how you approach this, and also how you personally as well are able to kind of continue your personal development journey?
To be clear about how I phrase this, I don't think that we can develop people. It needs to be an invitation and a setup, which is because development always needs to be very voluntary.
Okay. Yeah.
So it has to be a free choice, obviously. Otherwise, it's more like brainwashing.
Yeah.
So, but what we can do is, of course, to set up to encourage development, have this as an expectation, and to set up the organization so that it's deliberately developmental. So there are some aspects of this. One is we want to do development programs to be for everybody, not just choosing, talents that would be for development, because then you basically say if you choose 10% for talent programs, you basically say to the other 90%, we don't care about you. And that's not a good thing if you want to have a real team in your company. So it needs to be for everybody, and to do it not by irregular stuff which happens far away and that you're supposed to bring back, but to do it as close to your everyday situation as possible. So everybody here should have a role and areas of responsibility and work they do that they don't fully master, so that they have something to stretch towards and can learn. And it's not a question about, okay, now we throw you into the deep water and see if you drown or not, but it's things to stretch for, but you will have coaching, support, context from people around you, from the team or from more senior people in the organization.
Okay.
So that's one aspect of it. And then we're also part of this movement called Inner Development Goals, which came up as a kind of response to, now we're halfway with the Sustainable Development Goals, and we're not doing very well at all. Some even move backwards, and we're not making a progress towards a sustainable world the way we should. And this was, so the Inner Development Goals is kind of a way of trying to address this, because we know what needs to be done, largely. We know that if we don't do it, outcomes will be very, very risky, potentially catastrophic. Still, we don't manage to make the changes we need to do. So this is like a way of researching, okay, what kind of inner qualities and skills do we need to make the external changes happen? And inner is then both in a person and in an organization. And then from academia, they researched what do people think are the skills needed for the sustainable transformation, and then it's 23 of them, and then it grouped in 5 different categories. So one is being, or relationship to self. Second one is thinking. Then it's relating, both to others and the world. Fourth one is collaboration, and fifth one is action. And the way we approached this was that we did this, it felt like also a natural progression for us, because we did first with an organizational developer as a psychologist, we did leadership development. Then we did team development based on research for what makes team work, and that's very much in line with an agile way of organizing. And then next step felt natural for doing inner development, because this was also a point when inner development had been very manifest for me, which was during the first couple of months of COVID. It was really quite, we talked about this VUCA world for a while, but the level of uncertainty and ambiguity during the first couple of months of COVID was just amazing, staggering, unprecedented. And a lot of things which were like, ready to start, fast forwarded very fast. But what happened for me was that more or less, not really consciously, but I realized that I always played a role as a CEO, which is close to some kind of a Superman role in terms of, you have the smartest questions and the best solutions for everything. Basically, you have a plan. And if we do like this, we're going to succeed. But there was no way pretending I had a plan that would, determine the outcome. So you kind of had to embrace vulnerability and say that, okay, I don't know. We don't know. We got to be able to try to figure this out together and learn as we go along. And giving up on that knowing and, feeling the need to display this image of knowing and being in control. Embracing that vulnerability, I think it was very clear to me that it made me feel stronger, and it also made me more relaxed, so I could participate more in joy at work instead of thinking, okay, why people should be more serious at work, and also expressing gratitude, because it's pretty I would say in a Lutheran or Protestant environment, it's a little bit you feel the risk that if you say thank you, people will get lazy. But I learned that it's really is the other way around. If you show gratitude, people want to contribute more. So I learned through my development, I learned some things that were important, and I think it made me more fun to work with. And also it doesn't just happen at work, because in a development it's in all dimensions. So I think I also became a more fun partner and dad to be around. And the same thing here. If I benefit this way from inner development, I want to make this accessible for all of, quote, my people or all the people at Icebug. And then moving from team development and seeing what's the next development we should work with, and having had this experience for me and in related things for some of the other top management, we said that, okay, let's try inner development goals as a framework for this and do it together with our, trusted organizational psychologists that we worked with for a while. So, and we divide the year in 100 days segments. So we said, okay, let's do one theme per 100 days. So we started with being, and then we moved into thinking, relating, and so on. Now we've done 1.5 years of this. So we start with making like an introduction to this category, see what research says, why is this good to have these skills, and then do some practical exercises. And then during the 100 days period, we have like every 2 weeks, there's a 1.5 hour IDG group meeting. And then it's groups where people from different teams are put together. And then basically you talk about if you have found some skill or quality to work on, how you have worked on it, or what your reflections are around working it. Sorry, and learn by this kind of sharing.
Really interesting. I'd love to find out a bit more about that, actually, but maybe...
There's a white paper out, because we were one of the real pioneering organizations in this, to really try to work with it in practice. Yeah. So the Inner Development Goals organization, they put out the white paper where we are one of the examples.
What's your favorite piece of sports or outdoor gear? And you're not allowed to say something from Icebug, because that would be way too easy.
Yeah, that's easy. Skis.
Skis? What? So what type of skiing? Are you a cross-country skier, downhill skier?
No, touring, so alpine touring. Okay. So I would go for something which is light enough to skin up, but then big enough to have fun skiing down.
Great. Sounds good. Now, you already mentioned one book, but is there another book that you would recommend for somebody that's working within the industry to inspire them and motivate them to do better?
There are a lot of different books that have inspired me. Some are more on the business side. I think that the whole framework, which is in this Jim Collins body of work with good to great, I think you can find that the roadmap online, and then you can go into one of the books. That's been very useful for us as a kind of how do you create a well-working business.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Then I think also Brené Brown has one book called Dare to Lead, I think it's called. That's about vulnerability and that kind of research. There's a book called An Everyone Culture about deliberately developmental organizations by Robert Keegan and Lisa Leahy. And then there's also, I don't know what the book is called, but Half Earth, E.O. Wilson, the whole half Earth ID that we should keep half Earth wild.
What a great idea.
Yeah, and then yoga philosophy is quite interesting as well. There's one called The Tree of Yoga by BKS Iyengar. That's a good one.
And if today was your last day here, what would your message be to the team?
Like if I die or if I...
I'm not saying that. Just if it was your last day. Maybe you die, I don't know, but that's not what I'm suggesting.
I think I would say it would be do good work.
Okay. It's simple. And maybe then that'll connect to this question. So if you were to give future leaders in the sports and outdoor industry 3 bits of advice, what would those 3 bits of advice be?
I think finding the joy and passion in what you do, and be able to, when business as usual is destructive, to stand up against it. I think you're worth working somewhere which has a good purpose. And look for a business model which gives value and where it's aligned, so that when the business is reaching its business targets and it's doing well, then the world is also doing well.
The aim of this podcast is to really help people that are either working in the sports and outdoor industry or would like to on their career path. So considering that, is there anything today that we should have talked about that we haven't, or any question that I should have asked?
I think we covered a lot of ground. I think a lot of this is my personal thinking and ideas and motivation, and I think that's it. Does you need to find your own inner compass. I think that's an important thing, so that you can be in some way authentically yourself, and don't try to show up at work and putting your best side forward, but creating a culture where we can be people and bring our whole selves to work. Because there are so many false divisions, like that you would step into a professional role, and then all of a sudden there's a set of morale that is a business morale, and you follow certain things which is right in a business context, and you kind of leave what you think are the right things in your personal life. And this thing about externalities, that businesses should look at profit only, and you don't factor in how you affect society or nature. And we need to be our whole selves at work also.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, I think that's a really good place to end on. So thank you very much, David. I really appreciate your time. I think I think very genuinely that you're somebody that really inspires people within the industry. So, please keep doing what you're doing. And as I said, thank you very much for the time. Super interesting discussion. We covered less than half of my questions. So maybe in a few years we'll come back, or I'll come back and we can carry on the discussion. But thank you very much today.
Thank you, Dan. It was fun. A joy.
I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did. We love to read your feedback, so please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks again for your support. See you soon, and don't forget to subscribe.